Hello, welcome to the webinar on the topic Last Minute Study Tips for Business Laws. This is for both CA CPT students as well as CA Foundation students who will be writing in May and June. To clear your last minute doubts and to give tips on the subject, we have with us company law expert and business laws expert Mr. Alok. Welcome to the webinar, Alok.
Yeah, so thank you Vishwas, thanks for having on the webinar.
Excel Academy is collaborating with Toppr for this webinar. We thank Toppr for this opportunity as well. And this is the first time for the CA Foundation students. This is their first attempt, in fact, with this type of exam, that is the descriptive type. So they may have many doubts regarding the subject.
Correct. Yes.
So to start with, what exactly is this topic all about? What is business laws?
Yeah, so first we have to know what is business law. So business law is nothing but the law which regulates businesses, put in very simple words. So to elaborate little further, we can say that when there is a business, it could be any form of business. It could be a proprietorship concern, a partnership firm, it could be a company. Any form of business will have certain laws. To have a simple business transaction, just to sell and buy something, we have to follow different laws. And to regulate this, there are multiple laws. So as a student of chartered accountancy, you have to be well versed with these laws, and that is why we have business laws.
Okay. So what is the objective of business laws?
Actually, to know the objectives of business law, one is the overall objectives of business law. The second thing we should know is what is the objective of why we have it in our CA syllabus.
Right.
So when we look at why do we have it in our CA syllabus, just think yourself that tomorrow you're going to be a chartered accountant. In fact, that should be our approach, only then you can do it well. So tomorrow when you're a chartered accountant, you should be able to advise the clients, you should be able to advise your company where you're working with respect to the different laws. One simple thing is Companies Act. So Companies Act is something which has come in 2013, and then everybody, whether it's an advocate, a chartered accountant, a company secretary, everybody needs to have a good knowledge of it. So as a chartered accountant, you might not become an expert in the Companies Act, you might not become an expert in the Contract Act, but then understanding of those laws will be necessary for you to do your work, which could be accounting, which could be auditing, or even things like forensic audit. To know that work, this is a basic foundation knowledge which you need. So the objective of putting this for 60 marks, and in the CPT, when CPT students are watching, it is 40 marks for them. But for the foundation, CA Foundation, we have it for 60 marks, and the objective is so that the students who are tomorrow going to become chartered accountants are well versed with what is the business law, so that it will help them to do their core activity, which is accounts, audit, and things, or like for example GST related work. So that is the objective of business laws.
Okay, business laws is too generic a term to understand what exactly we have as part of the syllabus. What are the course contents? What kind of laws do we have in business laws?
Okay, so in business laws, primarily in the CA Foundation, they have 5 different acts which they have. So these 5 acts are the Contract Act, the Sale of Goods Act, the Partnership Act, and newly they have introduced the Limited Liability Partnership Act and the Companies Act. So in the CPT, we even had this Negotiable Instruments Act, which they have kind of removed, which will be there in the next stages, IPCC and all that. So this is the 5 acts, which is the core act, which they want the students to have a good understanding and foundation, and that is the syllabus which covers these 5 acts.
Okay. Any tips regarding the most important chapters among those 5 acts?
So first of all, there are just 5 acts, and you should know all the 5 acts really well. But if you have to ask me in the order of importance, I should say the Indian Contract Act is the most important act, and that is the core, because any form of law, the foundation, especially for a student of commerce, whether you're a CA student or a law student or even a CS student, it is very important to know the Contract Act. In fact, there are so many principles in Companies Act also where your concepts of the Contract Act will become useful for you to understand the Companies Act. So the first is the Contract Act, which is most important. The second importance is the Companies Act 2013, which is there for the CA Foundation students. The third one is the Sale of Goods Act. And the fourth, I should say, is LLP, because it is new. And the last one is partnership. Why I am saying last is not because they'll ask less marks or something. It is simply because you already have some understanding of what is partnership. In fact, in ICSE and CBS, even in +2 stage, they would have studied a little bit about Partnership Act.
Right.
So I can say this is the order which you should concentrate both for exam and also for conceptual understanding of the subject.
Okay. Earlier you mentioned that LLP has been recently introduced. What is this LLP all about?
Yeah, so LLP is Limited Liability Partnership. So we had primarily for anyone who wants to start a business. Suppose you want to start a business tomorrow. The primary option for you was to probably start a proprietorship concern where your liability is unlimited. The next option is partnership. You have to look for at least one more person and start a partnership firm. And the third option is you can go for a private limited company. There was a very huge gap between the private limited company and the partnership firm in terms of the compliance, in terms of the liability, in terms of the advantages. So they thought that let us have a new form of entity which is like a hybrid of a private limited company and a partnership firm. So LLP brings the best of both worlds in both the Companies Act and also the Partnership Act. So it's a hybrid, you can say, and lot of new businesses are opening LLPs. LLPs are being opened primarily for one reason, because the compliance is much easier and then it is easy to do the day-to-day activities, and it is easy to do the compliance and things there. And second thing, as a student of chartered accountancy, you should know LLPs are being used for tax planning. So it's a very wonderful vehicle where it will help in tax planning, because LLP can become a member in a company. LLP can become a shareholder in another company. So suppose we need 250 people want to start some business. Instead they can do is the 250 can open one LLP and that LLP can become a member in the company and like that. So they recognize, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India recognize the importance, and that in future many more businesses will open as LLPs. So a chartered accountant will have to do audit. And audit in LLPs is compulsory if you have 25 lakhs of capital, that is your contribution, or 40 lakhs of your turnover per year. And many LLPs today, 40 lakhs is not a big amount, especially if you are in a sale of goods or trading like that. In 1 or 2 orders you will reach. So a chartered accountant should know, how do I audit a LLP? So what is in this LLPs? Basically, what is a LLP? What is the form? Because LLP is just like a company, separate entity in the eyes of law. It has its own identity. So all those features they want the student to understand, and that is why we have this LLP Act.
Okay. So my next question is relevant especially for those who are writing the CA Foundation exams, because it's been a long time since CA introduced this kind of descriptive type of questions.
Correct.
What kind of questions can they expect? Of course, with regard to CPT, already we know what kind of questions, but with regard to CA Foundation, so what would be the pattern and how to answer those questions?
Yes. So now I'll address both the CPT and the CA Foundation students. For CPT, it is simple. You have 1 mark, 40 questions, and that is what you already know. It is multiple choice based questions. Now for CA Foundation, because it is descriptive, this whole 100 marks, which is law 60 marks, and business correspondence, English and stuff like that, which is for 40 marks. Entire thing has been made as descriptive. And then if you look at the questions, actually I saw one of the question papers and we can actually see 2-3 examples so that you'll know what kind of questions you can expect. And this is from the ICAI, so from the Chartered Accountant Institute itself. It is not the question which I have framed. So for example, they've given one LLP we just discussed. State the meaning of LLP. What are the steps to incorporate a LLP? So if you can see here, they are asking you one direct question, what is LLP? Second part, they are asking you what is the procedure. So again, if you go back to the CA syllabus, if you see objective, why is this? They are telling that the student should have a practical application. So they're just not going to ask what is LLP, how many people can form LLP. That is one part of your knowledge. But more importantly, they want you to know things like the steps to incorporate. That is one example. Or here they have one more question. Explain the difference between sale and agreement to sell under the Sale of Goods Act. So here again, they're just not asking you what is sale. They're asking you the difference. And the third kind of question, so one is the procedure, the second one is differentiate between, the third one is they'll give you an imaginary scenario. So for example, they've given here, one Mr. Ishan, age 16, was studying in so and so college, he took a loan, he did not return, and that question is relating to Indian contract, right? Advise Ishan, they have given the question. So the first thing should go to your mind is you should understand the facts, what has happened over here. They want to test your application of mind. Have you understood the concept? People who just by heart will not be able to answer these kind of questions. And for this, for example, actually, even if I don't know the answer, if I know the basic, first thing it says Ishan is 16 years old. So he's a minor. So minor cannot enter into a contract. So you know minor cannot enter into a contract, you just studied that. But how do you apply that knowledge? By asking such questions. So to summarize, you can say direct questions, differentiate between questions, and questions which test your application of mind by giving a scenario, and for that scenario they'll ask you to advise on that particular matter. And the marks here also, it varies from 4, 5, 6, and even some questions are there for 7 marks, and this is what you can expect in your upcoming CA Foundation exams.
So where can they download the questions and answers, Alok?
These questions and answers I'm not very sure, but the questions are ready in the ICAI website itself.
I believe even the answers are there just below the questions. I think you can download the answers as well.
Okay.
So all types of questions can be found there. So that is
one good resource.
Yeah, exactly. And now that we know what exactly is business law and how many laws we have, how many hours do you think the student should dedicate for this subject?
So for CA CPT students, so just think that you have never touched the book till today. You would need at least 50 to 60 hours to get through this entire syllabus of 40 marks. For CA Foundation student, you need at least 60 to 65 hours to go through everything if you have not touched the book. Suppose you have already attended classes, it could be online class or it could be offline class, or if you have already studied once, you could have done self-study. If you have a fair idea, you would need around, I say around 40 hours to study this entire syllabus. Okay. So you still have time, it's about a month's time. So even if you have never touched, you still have hope and you can do it.
Okay. Carrying your point further, if I haven't touched the topic, which book would you recommend?
So which book we recommend? This is one question. Every student wants the easiest book and the simplest book to study. There are many books, there are many private books, there are many resources also, like in Toppr.com there are some resources, but then we have to understand the questions are framed from which book? From the ICAI study material. So if you finish the study material, then I can say you can go to other books, but first finish the study material. The study material is in fact drafted very well for law, and I think that should suffice, more than enough, and it is not so difficult that you cannot finish it in 1 month. Definitely good enough.
Some of the students of Toppr.com have asked few specific questions. Can we take those questions?
Sure, definitely.
So one of the questions which they have asked is, what are the different modes of dissolution with regard to a partnership firm?
Okay, so this is a very specific question about a particular chapter. So dissolution of partnership firm, first thing, as a student of Partnership Act, you should understand it. There are 2 parts. Dissolution of partnership is one part. Dissolution of partnership firm is a separate part. So what happens in dissolution of partnership is that only the partners are having a end of their relationship. That's all. The firm may continue. For example, there are 4 partners. In that 2 are retiring or 2 are going out, and in that case there will be dissolution of partnership only. But if all 4 of them want to close, we call it as a dissolution of partnership firm. So the first thing we should understand is there are 2 different things: dissolution of partnership and dissolution of partnership firm. The next thing is, what are the grounds? So for dissolution of a partnership, the grounds is actually, I have made an acronym for that, RID, R-I-D. So the first is R. R is when there is retirement of a partner, there will be dissolution of partnership. Second one is I. I is insolvency. If any one of the partner becomes insolvent, there will be dissolution of the partnership, not the firm. Then D. D is death. Suppose 1 or 2 partners, anyone dies and the others are surviving. At that time, there is also a dissolution of the partnership. So that is dissolution of partnership. Second one is dissolution of partnership firm. So if the firm has to dissolve, like I told you, if there is dissolution of partnership firm might not happen. But if we have dissolution of partnership firm, obviously and necessarily the partnership also is dissolved. So what are the grounds for dissolution of the partnership firm. So for that also I have made acronym DIM. So DIM basically means that if there is a dissolution notice, D is dissolution notice. One partner gives the dissolution notice to the other partners. I want to dissolve this firm.
Right.
So that is one ground.
Correct.
The second ground is if it is a illegal. So if the business becomes illegal overnight, suppose there is a new government law which says that from now on you cannot carry on this business.
Correct.
I'm giving a very crude example, but something
Sure,
like
sure,
that.
sure.
So that is also a ground for the dissolution of the partnership firm. Then the third thing is M. M is mutual consent. So if all of them say, okay, enough of this, we'll close the business, we'll close the partnership firm, there is dissolution of partnership firm as a whole. So we can say these are the grounds. So just like these acronyms, if you can also make, it will help you to remember, and you will not forget, and you can write in the exam properly.
Okay. Thank you. And there is one more interesting question. What are the essentials of a valid contract?
Okay, this is something very elementary, and this is something which you should know, which will help you throughout your student life of CA and also once you start working.
Right.
For any business, the first thing is contract. So only when two people come together and enter into a contract, the business will start. There will be an agreement. So essentials of a valid contract, there are basically 6 essentials. And even for that, there is one acronym very easy to remember.
Okay.
It is PIC, PIC. So P is basically proposal and acceptance. So to have a valid contract, first thing we need to have a proposal and somebody should accept it.
Correct.
Proposal and acceptance. Then I is basically intention to create a legal relationship. So both of them or 3 parties, whoever are entering into contract, should have an intention that let us enter into a legal relationship and not an illegal relationship.
Right.
So that is PI. Then C. C, we have basically 4 C's. So the first C is basically consideration. Most important. And as a CA student, you should know well about consideration. You'll be counting lot of companies' accounts and also the balance sheet. Consideration is essential of a valid contract. After consideration, we have consent. They should have mutual consent, and consent should be free. So I cannot force, I cannot point a gun at your head and say agree, and then I say he agreed to the contract and now he is breaching the contract. I cannot say that. So after consent, we have consideration, consent, then we have certainty. It should not be vague. It should be clear about what is the contract. So that is the consideration, then there is consent, then there is certainty, and then the last point is actually capacity to contract. So capacity to contract is you should be a major, correct? Then you should be of sound mind. So these are the 6 essentials of a valid contract.
Okay. Very well. So now that we know what are the essentials of a valid contract, when do we say that a valid contract has been discharged?
Okay, so valid contract to be discharged. So in discharge, what we have to understand is that when is a contract complete, basically. So many students get confused. Discharge means, is it some hospital discharge or something like that? Discharge is when the contract is complete. For when the contract is complete, we have to understand that the first thing is contract is complete when the performance is done. For example, I offered, you accepted, I gave you the money and I've taken the product or service. So the contract is discharged. That is one simple way of looking at it. That is performance. So then after performance, we have to understand the next way a contract can be discharged is if there is any operation of law. So for example, now somebody is declared as insolvent in the court and he has entered into some other contract. Because of his insolvency, he need not honor the contract. That is as per the insolvency law. That is not there in foundation, but I'm just giving you an idea. So that is another way to discharge the contract. So then the other methods is again mutual consent. You can discharge the contract under mutual consent. That is another way to discharge the contract. Then the other point which we have to understand is if there is something which is become illegal, you cannot perform because impossibility of performance. So suddenly there is a new law or something like that. Even that time the contract will automatically get discharged. So this is like the overview of how a contract will get discharged.
So we have hardly 4-5 weeks for the exams. Any study plan which you can suggest to the students, which they can stick to and then maybe get through the exam?
Yes. Yeah, that is one big challenge, because time is of highest essence when we have like just 3-4 weeks for the exam. So what you can do is, I can talk about especially this subject and specifically law, because the other part, the business correspondence, is quite easy, and for CPT students you don't even have that. First thing which you have to do is you have to plan the overall number of hours which you feel is required. So I told you need around, if you already studied, around 40 hours. If you have never touched the book, 50 to 60 hours. Once you know you have 50 to 60 hours, you divide that into every day how much can you do. Because you have other subjects also, you cannot put all your time to this. So ideally, if you're a full-time student, you don't have college, you are not going for a job, you should be studying like 8 to 10 hours a day. In that, for law, if you can give at least 2 to 3 hours, I know it may be a little difficult for you to give so much, but if you give at least 2 hours per day, I think it should be really good enough. And when you give 2 hours per day, you plan it today itself, like this week, what are the topics I'm going to cover. If you write it down, it gives you a goal and you'll be able to. And don't write it till the exam, then you are not able to follow the timetable, and then you'll get little disappointed. So better, what you can do is just write it for like 3 days or 4 days, and then what you can do is you can change it after few days. You can change it after few days, and based on how much you are able to complete, you will have a good idea.
Very well. I have few questions with regarding the other aspect as well, that is the business correspondence. Can we take few questions regarding that?
Sure. So CPT students, don't think this is boring for you. You should know this. So even you can watch this part.
So why do we have this topic for CA students, that is business correspondence? Because this has been introduced for the first time here.
Correct.
So what is the importance of business correspondence for the CA students?
So actually I was watching one of the videos where the CA president was talking when he released this new syllabus.
Okay.
So what he told is they got feedback from industry, companies and everyone that there are students who have completed CA, extremely brilliant, they are very good with accounts, tax and the core subjects, but they're failing in things like how do I talk to my boss, how do I write emails, basic etiquette like emails, they're having a problem. So the industry feels that they kind of lose the respect for some strange reason. You may be very good technically, they lose the respect. So that's why he told that ICA, the board of studies, took a decision where we should introduce it in the foundation stage itself, that only if you clear that, you are good enough to come to our intermediate or for final. So, and here also what kind of things we have is something which will be using day-to-day basis. So it is not so difficult also.
Okay. What is very important with regard to this aspect of the subject, that is business correspondence? Any important topics which you can touch upon?
So in business correspondence, most of the topics are simple. Like actually, if you have done your +2 and your English is pretty good, this is very easy subject. In fact, what I would encourage you is in 40 you concentrate. Don't think it's easy. It's only 40 marks, but if you do well for 40, you may even get 30 marks or 32 marks like that. So in business law, if it's a little bit of a challenge, even if you score like out of 60, some 25 or 30, still it will be very good. In fact, you can score much more, but suppose it is difficult also, it will be good. So you have to concentrate on things like précis writing. You have to like practice the précis writing, and then there are some how do you write a resume, how do you write an email, and all this is very simple. So you can concentrate on those topics.
You just now mentioned précis writing. What exactly is précis writing?
Yeah, précis writing again becomes very important, especially if you are working in the finance department. CAs work in the finance department. So what happens is usually there is a brief given by the MD or anyone else, a higher authority, or also sometimes there is some government notification or new news item or new law which comes into picture. So you are the bridge between the news and the people who should know, like your board of directors. Board of directors won't have time to read 10 pages which is released by the government. So what is important is you must reduce that. So précis writing, you're reducing the entire content of, let us say, of 10 pages to 1 or 2 pages without losing the meaning. Everything should be intact, and every point should be there, not every word, every point should be there. And that is the art. And if you know to do good pre-C writing, you can save lot of time in your day-to-day activities when you are working.
Correct.
So that is why they have put this. And pre-C writing, you cannot read, you have to write and practice.
Correct.
So what you have to do is you must take let us say one normal magazine or some article, and then you try to reduce it by 1/3 at least.
Right.
And then you check whether all the points are there.
Right.
Then whether the same meaning, whether the meaning should not change
Correct,
after
correct.
you finish pre-C writing, the meaning should
yes.
not change.
Yeah.
So that you should ensure, and that is definitely that question will come, I'm very sure.
Okay, okay. And we have other topics as well, like article writing, report writing, formal writing. And what are these topics? Is it very difficult to study these topics?
No, again, we should go back to what the ICAI president told. Why have they put this? Normally, if you are a student who are well versed with English and you are good with computers, communication, you'll say, why is this even
Yeah,
there?
it looks very obvious to anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then they did a study which they found that majority of students are from smaller towns, from
Right.
rural backgrounds. They are taking
Okay.
chartered accountancy course.
Right, right.
While they are able to do well in tax, accounts and
Okay.
all, they are failing in simple things like how do I write an email?
Okay.
Forget that, how do I write my resume? I want a job, I want to
Okay.
write my resume, how do I write that? So that is why they have added these
Right,
topics,
right.
and it is fairly simple, it is not as difficult. In fact, it will help all of you tomorrow,
Okay.
and it's quite easy.
Okay. Any overall strategy for the entire subject as such, business laws and business correspondence?
Yes, so here what I can say is, if you are very good with your English business correspondence, what is easy, you should make sure you pounce on it and then do really well in that. So for this 40 marks which is there, many students tell me it's very easy, I'm able to do it or not. If you are easy, if it's easy for you, you make sure that you get above 30 marks in that. And when you get above 30 marks in that, in law, whether you're good or bad, if you're good, you may get like 40 to 45.
Right.
Or even if you're not that good, it's your average, it's difficult, 30 to 35. Together in this subject, this is one subject which you should try and score above 60 or 70, because if you have a difficulty in like maths or statistics or some other subject, you can make up so that you get the magical 50% to clear the exam. Once you know that business, English or correspondence you can concentrate, then coming to law, please spend, according to me, 40% time on contract act. If your contract act is strong, your concepts in contract acts is strong, you will be able to study the other acts in an easy manner. So that is why you concentrate on that, and apart from that, like I told you, make a timetable, do a planned study. I'm sure you'll do very well in this subject.
Okay.
Both the CPT and the foundation
Right,
students.
right. Any online resources which they can bank upon?
Yes, see, online resources, actually that is one good thing. Like when we were studying, that was a very big challenge.
Right,
Just that some friend will tell that there is one book, and we'll run to his house and we'll photocopy it in the middle of the night. It was very difficult to get resources, but now there are many resources. For example, now we are on Toppr.com, so there they have many resources. Or for example, we are from Excel Academy, so in Excel Academy you get many resources. In fact, you can just try our YouTube channel. So it is youtube.com/Excel Academy. We spell Excel with EKCEL Academy. So you can go there, and there are many more resources even in online which will help. So that is the advantage which we as students did not have. Now online resources are there, apart from obviously your books.
Yeah, yeah. And one common thing which we often hear is that CA is very difficult, and physical classes are definitely mandatory. So is it really the case, or student can study on their own depending on the various online resources which you just now mentioned?
No, one thing is, first of all, whoever is watching this live webinar, there itself it proves that online is something which is the future and something which is really helpful for students. Yes, many students tell me also that CA is the most difficult exam in commerce exams. We have these other exams like CS, CMA and CA obviously. And they say that we have to go to some physical class, and only when we go to physical class, one lecturer will be there and he will tell us. That is definitely, it works, and it's been working for quite some years. But then now there are some practical challenges, both for rural students and the students who live in big metros. And so let's say you're in from Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, Hyderabad, or a big metro like that. Biggest challenge for you is not, will I get a teacher? How will I reach the class? So traffic is a huge issue, and even if the classes are good, just going there, coming. Many students have told me surprisingly, their travel cost to come to class for 5 months, 6 months is more than the
Actual
tuition
fees,
fees or the coaching fees which they gave.
Right.
That is one thing. And then for students who are from smaller towns or from rural backgrounds, there is no traffic, but there is no teacher also.
Oh.
There are no coaching institutes. So there our online resources, online coaching comes into picture. Now technology has really come into intervention where you'll have the same feeling of online as offline, even in the online classes also. So that is the advantage, and you should have a mix, not that you should go only online or offline. And now since the trend is changing, that there are many online resources and you can definitely use all of them.
Correct. Any closing remarks before we wind up the webinar?
There's not much closing remarks, but if they have any questions or any live questions which are coming in, we can have a look at it. If at all there are, based on that we can take it.
So far.
Okay, so most of the questions are like, how do we complete studying and like that. I think we have already covered that
it's
so
pretty
far.
much covered.
So what we can tell you is like we are having a webinar even tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow's I'll be playing the host, and then Vishwas will be the expert who will be telling you about accountancy, your core subject in your CA Foundation. So tomorrow we'll be having that webinar, and we have 2 more webinars after this. So continuously we have 4 webinars from today for all the subjects of CA Foundation and CPT.
Thank you for joining us, Alok, and thank you for those who watched our webinar. So thanks Toppr.com for providing this opportunity to conduct the webinar.
Yeah, so at Excel Academy we really enjoyed this, and we are looking forward for the other 3 webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.